Do you constantly feel like no matter what it is you do for someone, it seems like it's just not good enough? Like every good thing you do for somebody else, they always got to find a bad thing that you did or something that you didn't do. And this goes on a continuous basis. Well, if you're dealing with this on a constant basis, then chances are you're dealing with a chronic fault finder. And this video is going to be about how to handle yourself against these kinds of people, against fault finders, so you won't lose yourself in the process. Now, what makes a fault finder who they are? Well, the reason is that fault finders, just like everybody else, they have their fair share of problems. So instead of them taking the time to resolve their problem, what they do is they go look for other people. That's a way for them to escape, to run away from their problems. So they want to concentrate on other people's problems, point out their flaws and imperfections, just so they can pass judgment on that person. They have a way of feeling good about themselves by comparing themselves to somebody else's imperfections. And I like to call this self-esteem by comparison. Because when it comes to building self-esteem, that means that you see a value that you hold inside of yourself. And this value, this is a strong belief that you have in your value as a person and in your capabilities. But this is something that you have to build on your own, each individual person. It can't come from somebody else, and it can't come from comparing yourself to other people like fault finders do. Because the truth of the matter is, we all want to feel good about ourselves. We all want to feel special. And there's a right and wrong way of fulfilling this need. Now, to feel good about yourself the right way means that you have an inner quality. You have a good level sense of self-worth. And that expresses itself out when it comes to dealing with other people. So in other words, how you see yourself is really how you're going to treat other people. So let's say, for instance, let's say you have a case of pointing out somebody's mistakes. Well, when you believe in yourself as a person and you feel that you have quality, then what you do is you give somebody else constructive criticism. And that means that you point out a flaw and a mistake in somebody else or an imperfection, but you do it because you care about that person. And because you care about yourself and you value yourself, then that means that you value somebody else. You care about that person. You're not pointing out mistakes just so you can tear the person down and make the person feel bad about themselves. And when it comes to chronic fault finders, they do just that. Because one thing you gotta understand, fault finders missing one important thing in their life, and that's genuine happiness. So to compensate for that happiness that they're missing out on, they have to compare themselves to somebody else. They point out other people's mistakes, not for the benefit, so the other person can benefit and improve themselves necessarily, but mainly just so the fault finder can feel good about themselves. Which explains why fault finders are very much difficult people to get along with, because no matter what it is you do, it's just not good enough. Now, if you have to deal with a constant fault finder, if you have to see a fault finder on a regular basis, whether this person is a friend, family member, or coworker, or anyone, then I'm gonna lay out 3 simple, quick tips on how you can handle yourself against these kinds of people. And the first thing would be to accept them for who they are. Now, this is important right here because when you accept the fault finder who they are, that relieves yourself from a heavy burden of trying to change that person. Because the truth of the matter is you're not going to change a fault finder or anyone else for that matter. And somehow or another, and I know I've been guilty of this too many times, we all have this belief that we can actually change someone. Whereas change has to come from the person. The person has to want to change. So don't even bother wasting your time trying to change a fault finder or trying to convince them to see your point of view. Because if they're chronic fault finders, and that's just the way they live. That's just how they are as a person. But the one thing you can do in this situation, it would be to accept them for who they are. Once again, so you can relieve yourself from a heavy burden. The second thing would be to understand that you did the best you could with that person. Because if you believe in yourself as a person, you know you did the right thing. You did all you could for that person, and that person, that fault finder, still want to find fault somewhere. Then make sure you convince yourself that you did do the best you can. And if it's a mistake that you made, just accept the fact that you made a mistake. But at the same time, you did the best you could for that person. Chronic fault finders are very much professionals at finding flaws in other people. So no matter what good thing you do, they're going to find something wrong that you did. And it's always, you did this, but you didn't do that. You did that, but you didn't do this. And if you consume that long enough, then you're going to end up just pulling your hair out, trying to please this person that you're not going to please. Because I guess, again, every good thing you do, they're going to find something wrong. They're going to find something wrong in that picture. And they'll be gladly to point it out to you. And finally, maintain your sense of dignity. There's another key point here too, because if you're dealing with a constant fault finder, a chronic fault finder on a regular basis, then this could lead up to heated arguments back and forth because of something that you didn't do. Now, a fault finder, again, will be gladly to point this out to you. And a lot of times, if you have a weak mindset, then what they'll do is that makes you vulnerable for that fault finder. They will try to convince you the best way that they can that you don't have no value, that what you did was just not good enough. And if you keep replaying that over and over and over again, what that person is saying, not to mention your inner critical voice, like I always mention in my other videos, then it's going to draw a belief that you're just not good enough. All right, so that makes you vulnerable to the fault finder's comments. So this is important right here for you to maintain your sense of dignity. Maintain that value that you hold within yourself as a person. Now, just to close this up right here, the thing I want to mention right here is that make sure that you understand that you did the best you can do. I mean, fault finders, I mean, they're gonna be who they are. I mean, again, you can do several things good, but these kinds of people, they're gonna find something that you didn't do. And also understand also that the problem is not you necessarily. The problem is really in the fault finder, because if this person is constantly finding fault on a regular basis, they're always finding out what's wrong with people rather than what's right about them, then that's a problem on their hands that they have to deal with on their own. And that really has nothing to do with you at all. So make sure you remember the tips. Again, accept them for who they are, and then understand that you did the best you can do, and maintain your sense of dignity. And if you understand these 3 tips and remind yourself of them over and over and over again, then you're going to be well guarded, protected, and a fault finder's negative comments won't have no effect on you whatsoever. At least not bring you down anyway, because you know and believe who you are as a person. So that's all I'm going to leave for you for this evening, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you next time around. Have a good evening.